Hello, good morning. Just gone 6 a.m. on Monday the 23rd December. It's Christmas Eve tomorrow. I'm just setting out on my second attempt at my December 200-kilometre ride for my Randonnuer Round the Year series. That's 12 months riding a 200-kilometre randonnée or above. It has to be at least 200k. Last week, if you watched my video below this one, I got to almost halfway and the bolt holding my saddle onto the seat post snapped in the middle of Cardiff. I just hopped on the train, came back. I was so lucky. It couldn't have happened in a better place. If it was going to happen, it couldn't have happened in a better place, really. That was the second one that had gone in exactly the same place. Never had anything like that in all the years I've been cycling. Then two have gone in a matter of months. I think the last one was in July, and that was just along here down by Lidl's car park, about a mile from my house. So both of them were very, very fortunate. If they had to happen where they did happen, it meant salvation was close at hand. So I'm very, very grateful for that. Anyway, today I'm riding down over the Somerset levels to Street near Glastonbury. So on this ride I'll tell you a little bit about the outcome of last week, how I sorted the problem. I also thought I'd give you a bit of background to what happened to me this year. There's a few things, could have been negatives, I was able to flip them into positives, and they've kind of forced me to modernise for the better, I hope. So I'll just briefly describe those. Also share a few little tips which I use to help me on the long winter rides like this. I mean, first and foremost, it will involve a lot of riding in the dark, which is why I start out early. That's why I've started at 6 instead of my preferred 7. It means within about 90 minutes it's going to start getting light, and then this evening I won't have one long stretch in the dark. I'll be approaching home by the time it's starting to get dark. So you can see I've kind of halved the amount of time I have to ride in the dark each stretch. I just find that helps me personally. And this is a DIY Audax, so I've entered it on a route of my own choosing, on a date of my own choosing, at a start time of my own choosing. I've got a GPS running. I just have to provide the track at the end to prove I've ridden the course I submitted. But that allows me a lot of freedom. I can stop where I want, I can eat where I want. I'm heading towards Bristol, and I'm just about to pass through Mangotsfield, the old station where I did my hot tent camp recently. You can hear the traffic over to my right. It's still dark, probably got about another hour or so before it gets light. I'm heading into Bristol. Today's route is kind of like a sickle off to the left, but a big bow with an eyelet at the bottom of it. So I'm skirting through Bristol, down south over the Somerset levels, riding behind Weston-super-Mare, Burnham, that sort of thing, and then curving into Glastonbury. Then when I get to Glastonbury, that's where the loop happens. I'll be heading down to Street, and then when I close that loop on my way back, I don't go back through Glastonbury, it closes up near Mere, where the famous fish house is, and then it's back up across the levels. May well be coming through Bristol at rush hour tonight, but I've got an ultra bright high vis for that. So about the saddle issue, one person on Facebook said to me, why didn't you just go to a bike shop? And I weighed it up very briefly and decided not to, because there'd be very little choice, it'd be expensive. The train trip back cost me £8.65, and I've picked up a new seat pillar from Treads for £16, so it's a relatively cheap fix. If I'd been on a cycle tour, then yes, I'd have definitely found a bike shop to fix it. If I was on, say, at 400 or 600, I'd have probably tried to fix it on the road then. Or if the 200 had been on the last day of the month and time was running out, I didn't get a second chance to ride it like today. I would have done, but I just thought it would be too time consuming. Centre Cardiff, trying to find a bike shop, etc. So I just quickly weighed up, just head for the trains, fix it at home, which I've done hopefully. So I've got 2 new seat pillars, exactly the same seat pillar on both my Audax bikes, and I've got a spare screw which is now in my saddlebag. As I said, never had it before, and it's happened twice within a few months, so maybe a bit of overkill, but it's just peace of mind. This will be my 8th 200 on my RRTY, so after today I'll be 2/3 of the way round. I've still got January and February to do, but it was the solstice the other day, so I'll start noticing the daylight getting longer, the darkness sections getting shorter, certainly on the February one. And I've kind of made myself a little plan. I may finish off the RRTY, that would be the April ride. I may have a go at doing a 300. Haven't ridden one for a few years now, and I really kind of miss it. They're so different to a 200 in many ways. It's much more of a mental game than a physical one, I believe so anyway. This is Barton Hill Tunnel. I saw an amazing photograph of here a few years ago. I don't think it's photoshopped, I honestly think it's genuine. There was these big icicles hanging off the roof. They were about, well, it's hard to tell, but they looked about 3 or 4 feet long, because you can maybe see it drips a lot in here. It's always a buzz coming along here. Soon be entering Bristol, so hopefully I'll be through that. Once we get past the old Ashton Gate football ground, Ashton Park, we got on the Western-super-Mare Road for a few miles, then turn off round the back of Cleves and onto the lovely Somerset levels, down in deepest, darkest Somerset. Oh wow, I just stopped. I don't know if you can hear it. There's lots of cooing pigeons in here. I know bats quite often frequent tunnels. Can you hear it? As well as the dripping. Just coming off the bike track into Bristol. You can see it's starting to get light. We got a weave all through the centre of Bristol, but I don't think it's rush hour quite yet. I've just put my high vis on. We must be getting on for about 8 AM now, and you can see the sky's already blue. Cars are still lit up and it's still dark, but it's more light than it's dark. I'm just climbing out of one of the commuter suburbs of Bristol called Long Ashton. I think we're passing a part of the tramway construction on the left hand side. I don't know enough about the area to say that for sure, but I know the railway's just over there, so it may be running parallel to that. A lot of construction work going on up here. One last thing about the saddle incident last week. Thank you for the feedback. The general consensus was it was probably just metal fatigue, randomness, chance. I was a bit concerned if I was doing something wrong, you know, because as I said, I've never had one go before, and then 2, a bit like buses, isn't it? 2 turn up at once. I did think maybe I had too much in the saddle, but I took it off and weighed it, and it was only £5. I mean, that's 2 bags of sugar, isn't it? It's not really excessive. It just felt heavy when I lifted it up with the saddle rack and the seat pillow. It felt much heavier than it was. I don't think it was excess weight on it. It may have been, I don't know, but yeah, thank you for that feedback. It really helps, because just because it hasn't happened to me, I now realise it's happened to a lot of other people, and you know, they told me how they got out of it, going to bike shops when they're on tour, or just carrying a spare one these days. So I'm always learning. 64 years old, been riding since I was 8 or 9 years old. I'm still learning all the time, so thank you so much for that. We've now left Bristol. It's a lovely sunrise coming through there. It was actually quite pleasant. The traffic wasn't too bad. I'm now on minor roads. Looking up there, that would be Lowell's Gate up round there. Bristol Airport would be up on those hills over that way. What I'm thinking of is if I get through to March, that would be my 11th month of the 17th Randonnuer around the year. My 12th month, which would be April, I may well go for 300, because I haven't ridden that distance for a few years now, and I'm really beginning to miss it actually. I do enjoy the night riding, Has its challenges, but I generally enjoy it. Last week when I DNF'd, I got the train back from Cardiff to Bath. I was fine. I just thought, no, put it down to a training ride. That's nearly 60 miles. That's a good training ride for this attempt today. It was only when I sat down having my evening meal with my wife, we had the patio lights on, it's all fairy lights out there, and I suddenly had this awful feeling of regret. I would be out there now, I'd be on the last couple of hours coming home, savouring the darkness and all the Christmas lights and everything. I don't know if I've explained that very well, but I definitely had a sense of regret. Not during the train ride home, as it got dark hours later. You'll see I'm on the Red Thorn. As I said, I managed to get a new seat pillar, and I've got a new top bag. I had one stolen on the bike in the summer, so that just left me with one. So I've got two of these toe peak bags, and I just find them really good for snacks on the road and just keeping things like the camera covering when I'm recording. The other thing is my saddle bag is all prepped, so you can see I've got the front light in now, charging. As soon as I turn this camera off now, I'll plug that into recharge. That'll just be topping itself up in the saddlebag, so when I come to need them, it's all going to be ready. It's basically charging while I'm riding. So this is almost like a little mini stop. I'm just going to have a couple of mouthfuls of fig rolls here, and then I'll be making my way down towards Puxton, the Leaning Church of Puxton. We're now south of Weston-super-Mare, and we're running down alongside the Western down to Exeter Railway. Although it's flat round here, surrounded by these little lumpy outcrops, that's Brent Knoll up there, we'll be riding right underneath that. It's said that John Wesley, the founder of Methodicism, went up there one evening at sunset, got inspiration for a sermon. Over there is Breen Down. Behind that, partly obscured by trees, is the Bristol Channel Island of Steepholm. So there's all these little lumps around here. I guess the most famous one would be Glastonbury Tor. Now riding alongside these lovely reeds and reed beds, and that lump just behind there looks like a volcano. That's Brent Knoll. That's one of those mini hillets around here. Right underneath there is the village of Brent Knoll, and I'll stop there and have a sandwich. Cut the reasons, I'm about a third of the way round, doing the right for time. There's a seat there, there's a toilet there as well. I can even shelter there if it's raining or windy. And also my Garmin's just given me a low battery alarm, so I need to charge that. About another 5 or 6 minutes and we'll be at the first stop. I've got some sandwiches, I'll probably have one of those there. And then we'll do the final run in to Glastonbury, down to Street for the halfway loop. Across the railway again there. Just round this corner, you'll see we're heading for Brent Knoll, and it suddenly appears as if out of nowhere. About the distances, I don't get too hung up on them. I just said I'm about a third of the way, which I am, but I don't really look at the mileages too much. What I do is count them down, because on my Garmin Edge 200 you'll see there's 82 to go. But I find as you start to tire towards the end, fatigue builds up, the actual mileage is going down. There's a defined point and you're homing in on it rapidly, and that always gives me a big mental boost. Those type of reappraisal strategies have been shown to be so effective, so if it works, why not use it? Brent Knoll, 3/4 of a mile, riding alongside that rain. Feels like being in Belgium or Holland, flat as a pancake. Left here into the village, and hopefully there's a seat there waiting for me. This is a favourite stop of mine over the years. This is Brent Knoll Parish Council Village Hall. That's the hill of Brent Knoll right behind us. There used to be some old smelly public toilets there, open 24 hours. They were knocked down recently, and last time I passed there was a lot of building work going on, construction. It's now a community shop, which is really, really nice by the look of it. Christmas tree as well to give yourself a little lift. So I'm just parking myself on this seat. I've sat in there in the middle of the night before, sheltering from the rain. You can see I've got my power pack with me, just charging my Garmin. My front light's already been done in the saddlebag. just topping up my head torch, and then every time I charge something up I put something else on, so it's all happening in the saddlebag without me even being aware of it. I did say I'd tell you some of the things that have happened to me this year that have brought on some changes and some modernisation, for the better actually. It's not really my year in review, but it may sound like it. So first off, after my cycle tour back in June, I won't carry on repeating the story, but I had my bike stolen. That forced me to buy a new one, and because it's the first bike in about 25 years, the difference is just unbelievable. I really like the new bike, so I've turned the bad experience into a positive. And not long after that, my laptop, my Windows 10 I think it was, just played up. It's never worked particularly well. They don't, do they? So I just binned it actually and bought myself a Chromebook, as my wife's been urging me to do for years. The difference between a Chromebook and a PC is the Chromebook just works. You switch it on, within about 25-30 seconds you're on the internet. It's not constantly updating itself, changing all your settings, slowing everything down, so that was really good. And it also forced me to migrate over to editing my videos on my smartphone, and again, that's so much quicker and so much easier once I got the hang of it. I just would never go back to editing on a laptop these days. And the one thing I would say about editing on a smartphone is, yes, it's easier, but it can sometimes be a little bit fiddly putting the jumps together, because I try and remove any mistakes or any dead spaces like ums and ahs out, and it's so difficult to do that unless you leave big gaps. So now on, I've just got to remember, if I'm talking, I make a mistake, leave a big gap, start again. So when it comes to edit it, it's much easier to stitch them together. So I'm still having to remind myself to do that. But yeah, going over to a Chromebook, editing on the mobile phone, well, they're both Google, so they're compatible. One's not fighting the other to transfer documents, they're just so compatible and smooth running. That was great. And then I always fire up my central heating boiler during the summer a couple of times just to flush the sludge around the system. I did it this year. The first time we needed central heating back in October, November, it packed up. And I'm not surprised, it's over 40 years old, it's a back boiler. I kind of naively was hoping it would outlast me, but I always knew if a major part went, it would be kaput, because you just cannot get the spares these days. I thought it would be probably the heat exchanger, but in the end it was the thermostat that went. Bought a brand new condensing boiler, which is so much more efficient. So we had the whole central heating system flushed out, got rid of all the sludge. Don't want to put a brand new boiler in with all the sludge, so it was power flushed. That took a day. Then the boiler had to be resituated, floorboards up and everything. And he said to me, this boiler is about 94% efficient. It's a condensing boiler. We're on low pressure because I've got solar hot water tubes. So he said it's much more efficient than your old one, and I sort of said, what would that have been? And he said, at a guess, 60-65% efficient. You'll notice the difference with this one, 94. And boy, haven't we ever, especially with the power flush. It heats the home up in about 20 minutes now, as opposed to 2 hours, barely getting lukewarm. We noticed the difference on the very first night. We'd let the bedroom get too hot. That's how efficient it was, and we had a job sleeping the first night, and we went, whoa. He said to me, you'll save about £65 a year just not having a pilot light on the back boiler, because the new condensing boilers don't use them. And we went, you're joking, 65 quid a year? And he said, yeah, you might not think it's much, but remember, mate, it's on all the time, 24/7, 365. He sort of said, it's only a small amount, but it's on constantly. And then his buddy sort of said, I think it's more like 85 quid these days with the price rises. And he said, oh yeah, I won't be surprised. Somewhere between 65 and 85 pounds a year, you were thrown down the drain on just having a pilot light. Again, we turned a bad situation into like a really beneficial one. And again, I'm starting to think, oh, I wish I had probably taken the plunge years and years ago. I said to the guy, I was hoping this would outlast me. And he sort of said, this new one probably will. Hope I don't offend you by saying that, but it probably will outlive you. And I said, no, that's exactly what we wanted to hear. 3 slight negatives this year that have all turned beneficial. I'd forgotten I'd tweak this ride to avoid coming through Glastonbury, or as I call it, Altruismville. So it came around the outskirts on the course of the old railway, actually past the site where Glastonbury station used to be, on all these industrial state roads, cut out all the stopping and starting completely. Then you drop down towards Butley, climb up on this ridge of hills. We just about cut through Millfield School there, and then the street will be on the other side, and then we'll finish this big loop up near Mere, famous for the Abbott's Fish House, so we don't even have to go back into Glastonbury, so that's quite good. That going through there reminds me of a few years ago, me and Linda went to see this Beatles tribute act a couple of times. They're really good. They were called Sergeant Pepper's Only Dartsboard Band. We saw them in the Bell and at Colston Hall, I think, and a couple of other places, and a couple of them, the founder members, were teachers in there. And they were just doing it for the crack, you know. They loved the music and they did dress up, but they didn't try and look the part with wigs and all that. I mean, these are balding middle-aged men. They were really good, actually, and they had the stage presence to carry it off. They had the wit and the charm as well. Plus the fact they look quite good and they sound quite good. But whenever I ride through there, I always think of those teachers. Beatles tribute band, the dartboard band. I'm now heading back towards... That's Glastonbury over there, and then over the other side of those hills was street. So I'm just finishing off my circuit and I'm coming back up towards Mere. You can see that ridge line there, that's the Mendips. I have just turned into a northerly headwind, so it could be troublesome this afternoon. I always knew that, really. Good chance to do some calculations. So it's saying I've just got under 5 hours to go at my current rate, and it's 20 past 12, so that's what, 20 past 5, isn't it? So that gives me almost 3 hours in hand, because I started at 6 a.m. this morning. The time allowance is 14 hours 15 minutes, 1-5, so that gives me to 8:15 tonight. So you can see, you can start doing some mental calculations just to give yourself a little bit of an idea how you're doing. So at the moment I've got nearly 3 hours in hand. I won't have by the time I get home, because even if it gets physically easier this afternoon, I will use up some of that time just for stopping and snacking. But it is a good kind of, almost like a cognitive map. It allows you to sort of plan. I just find it's much easier to manage your time than to try and ride faster. You know, physically much easier. It's also quite easy to do the calculations. I mean, the computer's doing it for you, really. I've just come off route slightly on the way back up towards Brentnell. I saw this on the way down, so I just wanted to come in and have a look. Lovely little kind of nativity scene at this church. This is at Eddington and Bristol. I always think of dandelion and burdock. I cannot get that mental association out of my head, so I always think that when I come here. Oh, that's really nice, isn't it? It is open, but I don't really have time to go in and look around. I've got to prioritise getting round, actually. That's lovely. Well, I don't know what time it is, but it must be rush hour, a lot of traffic. I'm in Bristol. I'm just literally riding alongside the River Avon, about 2.5, 3 miles maybe till I get on the bike track. So once I get there, it's pretty much traffic free all the way home. Anyway, there is a cycle path along here. I quite often ride on the road though. The cycle path is so bumpy and you quite often almost ride into pedestrians. I'd rather chance it on the road. I've got all my high vis on, reflective stuff, so I feel safe. Most of the cars are considerate as well. If I feel I'm holding a big queue up, I just pull in and let it go. So yeah, about another 10-15 minutes after I've walked that kind of tango down, then we'll be on the bike track. I don't know how well this will come out, but I'm on the bike track looking over towards Keynsham, the old Fry's Cadbury's factory, I think. Got a big Christmas fair on over there. That is so brightly lit, it's fantastic. I really do use things like that to give me a lift, actually. It's there anyway, why not try and hack into it? I'm on the homeward leg. I think I've got 6.4 miles to go. That'll change in a bit. Oh yeah, 6.4. So barring accident, illnesses, I'm going to manage okay. Second attempt has been okay. This afternoon, I guess it must have been just before dusk, about 3:15, 3:30. The weather really closed in. It came very misty, drizzly and quite grim, to be honest. And you know, I had that kind of unease, that discomfort. And I've learned actually through people who've researched this, just ignore it. It's perfectly normal. It's just the way we're wired. The good news is it normally dissipates of its own accord within about 20 minutes. One of the tips I was given was just download a timer, put it on your phone and set it for 25 minutes, because that 25 minutes will be more than the 20. When it goes off, you'll have thought, oh yeah, that disappeared, without even knowing it. If you are struggling a little bit, one of the things I do is I sort of tell myself funny jokes and funny stories, because it makes me laugh, because like smiling and laughing releases endorphins, doesn't it? Feel good hack. So once it got dark, it's okay. It's just that sort of slight unease, just about 3:15, 3:30. Got through Bristol, no problem. The ride itself has been pretty easy. Okay, just gone 6:30. I'm back in Bath. Got 1.2 miles to go. So accidents and real bad sickness, I'm going to make it. Second go. Last week, I just put that down to experience. It was so nice. So many people sort of saying to me, Andy, it's just probably mental fatigue. It was just chance. It's happened to them. Just write it down to experience. My December 200's in the bag. I've still got January to go. By February you really start noticing the lengthening days. By then actually I'll get quite a lift. It's not to say it'd be easy, but I find, if anything, when I did my super Randonnuer around the year, the most brutal ride on that, without any doubt whatsoever, was the 600 in January. I remember thinking, if I'd started in January, would I have powered through that? I just, it's impossible to say. But because I was almost on the home straight then, because I'd started in May, I think, or August, something like that, I was well on the way to completing. I had too much, I was too heavily invested in it to give up then. But yeah, January 600 was just absolutely brutal. Hopefully the next video may be a hot tent camp up on the Frostway somewhere, with my new front bag carrying the wood, and I'll put the axe and the saw in there as well. Anyway, if you've got this far, thanks so much for watching. I'd like to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas and all the best for the New Year, and I'll catch you soon. Bye for now.